Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a really fascinating piece of text titled The Psychology of Risk and Wealth Creation. It tackles something I think we've literally all wondered at some point. Like, what actually separates the average earner from high net worth individuals? Well, we're going to explore the hidden mechanics of wealth creation, and we're focusing on something surprisingly internal: how our minds process uncertainty. Because, as you'll see, the foundational building block of any massive portfolio, it isn't a specific asset class, it's a specific mindset.
So, why do some get rich? I mean, it's the age-old question, right? And when you look at the stark reality of the wealth gap, man, it can totally feel like you're staring down this massive, bottomless chasm with zero obvious way across. But our source text today frames this as a secret that's finally being revealed. The bridge across that gap, it doesn't actually rely on inherited wealth or insider connections or just sheer blind luck. It comes down to something completely within our control, and that is our mindset. Getting rich, it turns out, is a psychological phenomenon way before it's ever a financial one. It's really all about how you mentally map out that leap across the void. So, the crucial point is understanding exactly what we mean when we talk about the psychology of risk. Look, we are not talking about reckless gambling at a casino or just throwing money at every crazy idea that comes your way. No, we're talking about a highly specific mental framework. Just think about it for a second. Our brains evolved over millions of years to keep us safe from predators, so we naturally panic at the very first sign of loss or uncertainty. We are literally biologically wired to fear a rustling bush because, hey, it might be a tiger. And today, a dipping stock portfolio triggers that exact same primal physiological alarm. But according to the text, wealth generation is inextricably tied to overriding that prehistoric instinct. It's all about rewiring how your brain processes potential loss versus potential gain, and really understanding that absolute safety, it's actually a total illusion.
This brings us to a really monumental shift in perspective. Successful investors just think differently. The dividing line between those who just scrape by and those who achieve profound financial independence isn't a crystal ball. It's not access to some secret stock ticker. It is a distinct, fundamental shift in how they process information. Let's make this super concrete. When confronted with a sudden market correction, the kind that paralyzes the average earner with sheer terror, the successful investor simply doesn't panic. They literally have an entirely different cognitive process running in the background. They look at the exact same terrifying situation, but they calculate the hidden opportunity. While everyone else is running for the safety of the cave, the successful investor is sitting outside, calmly figuring out how to buy that cave at a massive discount.
Now, what's really interesting about this contrast is the massive cognitive divide it represents. For most of us, standard fear is just the default setting, right? Risk simply equals danger. It triggers this immediate emotional flight response. Like a thorny, unpredictable mess we just want to avoid at all costs to preserve what little we have. But the successful investor's approach to risk flips this entirely on its head. Where we see a mortal threat, they see a puzzle just waiting to be solved. They don't magically eliminate risk, no way. They just recalibrate their relationship with it. They take a step back, detach the blinding emotion from the math, and approach it analytically. Because they understand that without absorbing some level of calculated uncertainty, growth is mathematically impossible. Let's see how this builds into something incredibly actionable. By deconstructing this entire premise, we can actually map out a really clear 3-step psychological journey. Step 1, confront risk. You simply cannot bypass the uncertainty of the market. You have to face it head on and acknowledge that, honestly, keeping all your cash under a mattress carries its own invisible risk, like inflation. Then, step 2 is the pivot point. Think differently. Instead of retreating into that standard evolutionary fear we just talked about, you intentionally engage that analytical investor mindset. You process, you detach, and you reframe. Master those two, and that leads directly to step 3, wealth creation. The source text strongly implies this is a linear, causal relationship. The wealth, it's just the natural, lagging outcome of the heavy internal mental work you knocked out in steps 1 and 2. And this brilliantly illustrates the core thesis of everything we've been unpacking today. You have to learn how successful investors think differently about risk. It serves as both a powerful summary and a direct instruction for all of us listening. The text isn't handing out hot stock tips, and it certainly isn't telling you what specific piece of real estate to buy. It's telling you how to construct your mental framework before you ever deploy a single dollar into the wild. If you want the byproduct, which is the wealth, you absolutely have to install a completely new operating system for your brain. You got to upgrade from that prehistoric survival software to a calm, analytical, opportunity-seeking interface.
Which leaves us with the ultimate question. How will you think differently about risk? We've seen that true wealth creation is tied directly to a framework that actually embraces and reframes risk, rather than just running from it in a total panic. So the challenge is now squarely on your shoulders. And it's a decision you're going to have to make every single time you look at your finances. Will you stay trapped by that standard fear, letting primal instincts dictate your financial future? Or are you going to take this framework, install that brand new operating system, and fundamentally change how you approach your own wealth creation, starting right now?